I'm pretty sure that Game of Thrones is, you know, dictating people's lives now because we were just talking about it, and you wanted to say something about it, did you?
Oh yeah, oh my god. Game of Thrones has become
He's a huge fan, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Has become so popular now. And I mean, the argument I will make is that the dark potential of mankind is shown through Game of Thrones. That's
Okay.
the reason why I think so many people are into it. It's all the gore, the sex, the violence, the blood, the dramatic betrayals, the deaths.
Sounds so primal.
Seriously.
So yeah, back in the old days. It sounds so legit, and it sounds hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never really had a deep talk about that, to be honest, and we probably will get into it this episode.
Yeah.
Welcome back, folks, by the way. This is
Yeah.
supposed to be an Odyssey report, but we're not really caught up on the recent news lately.
Yep.
The thing I saw on the news lately, like on my feed here and there, Notre Dame. You know about the big fire that's going on in Notre Dame?
No. What's going on there?
Okay, so there's this ancient Catholic church. This is in France, and it's a cathedral actually, and it's one of the oldest cathedrals in history. It's like 700 years old, but apparently it went up in a blaze recently. So
Wow.
a fire took out most of the structural integrity of the building itself, and there was a big news coverage over it. Everyone was commenting about it. Even President Trump was talking about it over Twitter, and a lot of unnecessary comments about it. To be honest, when Trump talked about it, CNN came in and trying to make it look like he was saying something bad.
Right.
But the real story is that a fire ended up, I guess it was caused from a cigarette that was laid on the floor, and that cigarette may have come from a contractor or a worker because the church itself was under renovation. So there were a bunch of construction workers working on it and a bunch of contractors. And I guess someone during break got a little clumsy and ended up starting a little fire.
Wow.
And it ended up being a big situation. Like firefighters, they couldn't put it out, so they just let it burn and do its damage. Kind of sad. Got a big piece of history just burning down.
Yeah. How big was the cathedral?
Oh my gosh. How big was it? I think they're as big as they get, to be honest.
Wow.
Because it was around the time of like the medieval ages. So I'm looking at the size right now, and it's in Paris, actually. Let's see here. 70 meters long. The length is 420 feet. The width is 157 feet. It is 226 feet high. It's not that big, but it's a very historical piece of land.
Right. Architecture and all that.
Architecture, yeah. I'm looking at a picture right now. It looks kind of big to me, to be honest.
Right.
It's a big hall. They got a lot of ancient statues and a lot of stained glass windows. A lot of culture there.
Do you think that a lot of the people that used to go there, or very religious people, the cathedral, I'm assuming it's a Catholic church, correct?
Yes.
So do you think a lot of the religious folk think or interpret this as some sort of sign, or is it just like an
the end
accident?
of the world or something like that?
Maybe not like the end of the world, but some sort of sign of something.
Okay.
Do you think so? Do you think so, or is it just like they'll look at it as like, oh, that's sad. Like, I guess we're gonna have to rebuild that.
I think some of the hardcore believers in the Catholicism will think that,
Yeah,
because this is a very historical piece of 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 a building of history that's
Yeah.
being affected. So I can see how they could come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary though, because it's like this very spiritual, this very holistic, symbol
Yeah.
that just goes up in flames, and it's like, oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
it's a bad time. And I guess people, like you were describing, they could think that, where it's a sign of God's angry and he's trying to show us.
Yeah, possibly.
Could be. Do you believe in that kind of stuff, where it's like a spiritual being can actually send messages or subliminal messages through like certain events?
I don't believe so personally. I can understand how people think that and can think that. But I would any event that happens to me that the way I interpret it is okay. Probabilities will show that this can happen, but I could take away some sort of meaning from it. Now, what meaning I take away from it is a meaning I should choose. Does that make sense? So like, if I don't know, if let's say one of my close family members passes away, I can interpret the meaning of that and give it some sort of meaning. I can say, this person passed away. It may have happened because of whatever reason, but the meaning I'm going to take out of it is A, B, and C, and I'm going to live my life now by this reasoning. Does that make sense? I'm not going to think that that's some sort of sign from someone else other than me and what I take away from it.
Okay,
Do you
so
see
it's
what I'm
very.
saying?
I think I'm trying to understand, because it sounds like it's very internal
Yeah.
for you in that respect.
Mhm.
Through tragedy and through the bad times, most people tend to think highly in spiritual messages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like you were saying, family deaths, just deaths in general, and tragedy. People tend to, look towards religion for some comfort, and
Yeah.
many people do nowadays when they're facing death,
Yeah.
because this is that big mystery of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're no longer going to be here. Everything just goes black.
Mm-hmm.
But people get religious here and there, and it's a comforting tool in
Yeah.
respect to being okay with the unknown, being okay with mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of football sometimes when I don't watch football in general, but the one thing I do know is something called the Hail Mary pass.
Oh yeah.
It's a play in football where it's known as like the luckiest shot ever. Like
Mhm.
you get your linebackers like in a certain position, and you get your what's the guy that throws the ball? What's his name?
Quarterback.
The quarterback. It's really all on him. So he goes back behind lines, and he chucks the ball, right?
Yeah.
And he hopes one of the receivers actually gets it
Yeah.
in the end zone. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh my god, it's a Hail Mary!" And then the crowd goes wild, and then
Yeah.
people are happy.
Everyone's
one of those
tackling
happened
each other and
I know, right? Yeah, I think one of those happened in actually one of the Super Bowls. I'm not sure.
oh yeah.
Not that I would know, to be honest, because the only time I really watch football is during the Super Bowl,
Okay.
because it's like a whole big event. And,
No, same.
You're like, oh, we got to watch the commercials, and we get
Yeah.
we get food, and people come together.
Yeah.
It's like that with any big event actually in sports. So the World Series and baseball. What else? World Cup soccer.
Yeah.
That was a big thing, especially among Mexicans and Hispanics. They love
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. They call it football, but we call it soccer.
Yeah. Different
Yeah,
type of
people
football.
The real football. So
Yeah.
people get crazy over that, and people tend to joke around religion in terms of sports. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, God intended it, or Jesus is with the team, or something like that.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of weird, but it's a human thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, big thing in Notre Dame, building burning down. I think it's still intact, but no one's happy about it, and everyone's sad, and I think the church is actually near a university. Is it Notre Dame?
Oh,
I'm gonna feel kind of stupid if it's near that university, or if it's even in the university. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it is. University of Notre Dame, Dulac
Wow.
is a private Catholic research university in Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is a city.
Right.
I'm sorry, no. This is in America.
I was thinking that because I had a friend who actually went to the University of Notre Dame, and so
In
I was
Indiana.
like,
Okay.
yeah, I was thinking, I was like, isn't it in the U.S.? I could have sworn. But then I started thinking,
Okay.
like, wow, maybe he went out of country.
I got to type in France.
Yeah.
Because that's where it took place. Paris Notre Dame. Okay. I think it's just a cathedral in the city of Paris. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's in Paris, and I don't know how the cities work in Paris. They're really confusing. But it's in Paris, and there's this little sliver of land called Notre Dame.
Mm.
It's next to these other cities. Sorbonne, Saint Gervais. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at pronouncing names. But yeah, geez, France. That's a different country. I mean,
Yep.
stating the obvious here. What's it like to live in France? Because that's gonna be like one of the oldest historical based civilizations. One of the oldest like countries, right?
Yeah, any
Back in
European
Europe.
civilization, if you go back thousands of years, you'll see people are there, and it's just every time period within the last like 2, 3, 4,000 years, you'll see something there.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there.
Yeah,
Especially during like the medieval times and everything. So much architecture and so much culture was pretty much oriented in that area.
yeah,
Because I think during that time, I don't think Africa and the Americas, the Americans, they don't think they were doing much. Like they were doing their own tribes.
Yeah.
There were a lot of tribes in Mexico. There were a lot of tribes in Northern America, and there were just a lot of black people in Africa, and
yeah.
they were just taking advantage left and right throughout history. I think back in the day, the Egyptians were the ones who actually were they the oldest form of slavery? I'm not sure. The Egyptians.
What? To be honest, I'm not too sure, but I think one of the oldest civilizations was Egypt. Not the oldest civilization, if I remember correctly,
one of the
but
oldest
one
recorded?
of the oldest. Yeah, one
Okay.
of the oldest recorded. I mean, that's what I mean.
Oh yeah! Wow. Jeez, they were no joke. They were the ones who built the pyramids.
Yeah,
They knew something that we didn't.
yeah. Seriously.
What's going on? So, Notre Dame. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Game of Thrones.
Yes. Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So we're on the topic of history and medieval ages. Recent episode came out, season 8, I believe, right?
Yeah, season 8, episode 1.
Oh wow, must have been crazy. Don't tell me anything.
I won't tell you anything, but I will say this: it's. I think this episode was more of like a setup for the rest of the seasons because there wasn't too much happening on this one.
Oh, it was kind of like filler.
It was sort of filler, but it wasn't really too much filler. It was filler, yeah, essentially. For the most
Okay.
part, it was filler, yeah. But I feel like they're setting up. Nothing too insane was going on, you know.
Okay.
I feel like the insane stuff is going to start the next episode.
The next episode,
Yeah.
sure. What
go
I know
on.
so far, in terms of like the story, is kind of spoilers here, folks. Daenerys and Jon are still alive, and they met, and they're hanging out. What else?
Wait,
Tyrion is still alive.
Wait, are you reading the books
No.
for this, or
I just heard like rumors here and there.
oh, you're talking about the TV show?
Yeah, the TV show.
Oh,
I think in the books it's different. I have to get there to be honest.
Okay, so you already got a few spoilers here and there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones it's such a complex storyline, and I
yeah,
think the TV show itself actually they digressed from the novels. Is that
yes.
fair to say?
It was after season 5 that they had to, because I don't think they were caught up, and they needed to, year by year release the next season, and they needed time to sort of just film, and I think it's cool because when the show's done in a few weeks, people are going to be excited to continue the journey, and they might even end up reading the books, or at least some of them, not all of them, because I know a lot of people don't like to read, but
yeah, especially those books. I can tell you right now, folks, because it's such an intense read. Each book is at least 1,000 pages. Well, the first one is the shortest, and that's like 800 something. But still, not an easy read, because the difficulty that I think that I encountered was basically his choice of dialogue and his style of writing.
Yeah.
You really have to get used to it, and it's like a different way of speaking for each character. He really dives deep into character development, and he really encapsulates the reader in respect to the environment of each character. So each chapter is dedicated to a character, and you get in their mindset and you get in their environment, and he describes the scenes and he describes the emotions through this intense dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's so detailed, it's so intense.
Does he go into unnecessary detail in the books, like the curtain was blue, the bed sheets were
all the time?
rose?
Yeah.
Man, damn.
Yeah, I remember like some scenes where like there was a certain lady, I forget the name, but like she was wearing like amethysts and pearls, and they were glistering white and sparkling blue. It's like, okay, dude, that's like 5 pages right there.
I know. I don't like those types of books, to be quite honest, because get to the point.
Yeah. Get to the point, bro. We get it. She's hot.
Yeah. Like, what happens in the storyline? I get
even
that you're setting it up.
Yeah, even during the sex scenes or the sex. What do you call them? Like the sex pages.
Yeah, scenes. The pages. The scenes. Yeah.
So detailed. I think it's safe to say because John and what's the girl's name? The wildling.
Ygritte.
Ygritte? Okay.
Ygritte.
Right? Cool.
Ygritte.
She ends up dying, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I have told you that? Should I?
No. Yeah. I think in the second book she died, actually.
Okay.
It was unclear if John killed her by accident or by occurrence. Because like John was in some town and they were under attack and the wildlings were coming. And,
yes. Wait, in some town?
I forget the name. Or no, it was
the Night's Watch.
Black Castle.
Yeah, the Black Castle. Yeah, where the Night's Watch is. Yeah,
that's where it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that. But the back to the point.
The
sex scenes between those two were really detailed.
Oh yeah.
Like when they were together, there was like every chapter of John. It started with they were in the sheets together, and she didn't want to stop, and she just wanted it all the time. It's like, well, okay, dude, we get it.
We get it. He's an alpha male.
Yeah, very detailed. You really have to get used to it. But for the show, it's a lot easier because there's a lot less barriers. Like there's a lot of emotions in the acting, and I'm pretty sure they execute the scenes pretty well. Like there's good costume design, I think. There's good dialogue, emotions in terms of like body movements, things like that.
Wow, yeah. I don't know how far the show actually deviated from the books.
I don't know when, to be honest, like the exact point either. So,
well, no, I know when. I think it was towards the end of season 5, or at least for the show. But I'm saying like even before that, I'm saying from season 1 to 5, the parts where it was actually going based on the books or based off of the books. How accurate was it from the books and the TV show? You know what I mean? Was the storyline the exact same?
Yeah, I think we had some conversations about that because I used to update you on like where I was and what happened, and
and some of the events were not exactly as they were in the show.
They weren't actually. We discovered some contrapoints.
Yeah,
I forget which particular sections of the book though and the show.
Yeah,
that were kind of different.
I was thinking about getting the audiobooks, by the way. What do you think?
The audiobooks?
Yeah.
Who's reading it?
It's some British old British dude with a deep voice.
Okay, and how much does it cost?
I think you can. Okay, it was like I have free credits for Audible, but
Okay. So it's
if
not a problem
not,
for
then
you.
I think I can find the audiobooks online somewhere for free. Um,
For free.
yeah, honestly, don't hit me up, the FBI. Don't get me.
They're listening right now. They're gonna knock at your door. Because I bought like a whole set for like $34, and that came with all 5 books.
Okay, the audiobooks or
No,
the
the actual hard copies or
okay.
the paperback.
So how many books are there currently? And if
Currently,
yeah.
in the Song of Ice and Fire, it's
Yes.
5, I believe.
Okay.
Because the sixth one is yet to be released, and that's Winds of Winter,
Yes.
and he's still working on that, and he's been very, and by he I mean George Martin.
Yeah.
He hasn't been very up to date on us on that.
Right.
So yeah, there's 5 books in the Song of Ice and Fire so far. Yeah, and look up Winds of Winter. Let's see what the deal on that is. Because he released a book before he released Winds of Winter, and he released it recently. I think it was called like The Blood. Jeez, what was it called? Fire and Blood. Is that what it is?
But was that part of the show? Was that part of Game of Thrones or?
I think it was, yeah, because it says here it's like a prequel. So it's 300 years before a Game of Thrones.
Oh, you know what?
So it's a Targaryen history. So I think it's based on them. Yeah.
Dude, because Fire and Blood is the saying for the Targaryen house, and Aegon Targaryen was the one who conquered Westeros 300 years ago. Daenerys' ancestor.
Yeah, I really want to get into that book, but I really want to finish the the first 5, to be honest. But yeah, this is like a prequel. But they don't have any of like of the past in the show, do they? Like they don't explain like the times before the Mad King and the House of the Targaryens. They don't have that those scenes, do they? Or that season?
They talk about it every now and then, but there are no. My bad.
Okay,
there are no scenes. Yeah.
They talk about it a lot in the book as well.
Okay.
Like hints here and there, but yeah, there's never been a strict showing of what it was like.
Yeah.
But yeah, this came out recently. This came out in November 20th, 2018. So there's that. It's like when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, okay, more reading.
Oh yeah. So he's coming out with the 6th book. Is that the final one, The Winds of Winter?
I think it is.
Okay.
He doesn't really say. He doesn't really finalize if it's the final book. Maybe, maybe not. Is it the last book? Who knows? Maybe he doesn't say anything about it.
Okay. But okay, so what book are you on right now?
I'm on the 4th book, which is A Feast of Crows.
Wow, that's pretty far, to be honest.
I've been at that point for quite some time, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I was all on board for this my binge reading, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to finish all the books before this season 8 came out.
Yeah.
I kind of slacked on it. So I finished the first book in like 2 months. I finished the second book in like 2.5. And then I finished the third book in 3 months.
Wow.
So I think in total, it took me like 3/4 of a year to finish 3 books. And then I'm on the 4th one. But I haven't opened it in a while. It's kind of just been there.
Right. How many pages per book?
The first one was like 800 something. Second one was 1,000, and the third one was like 1,000 plus. They kind of increase.
Wow!
They increase in pages. Yeah, no joke.
I thought Harry Potter was bad, dude.
I never read Harry Potter. I've never seen one movie of Harry Potter either.
Oh wow! I used to be a big fan, dude. That was the first big book I read when I was young. And I remember I was in the 3rd grade, and my friend, we went to the library together, right? I was reading these small books, and he picked out the Harry Potter book, the first one, right? And he's like, dude, why don't you read Harry Potter? I'm like, dude,
like,
that's
dude.
a massive book. How can you read that? We're in the 3rd grade. And he said, dude, just do it. Don't be a wimp, you know?
He knocks the books out of your hands. Get that weak shit out of here, and he slams Harry Potter on the table.
Seriously. And so I actually tried it out, and I'm like, wow, I actually did it. Not bad. He pushed me, and I did it.
Wasn't there recently something? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I got into the whole series, and throughout my elementary years, that was what I ended up like loving.
Yeah, a lot of childhoods were based on Harry Potter. That's why it's so popular.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, the author J.K. Rowling,
Yeah.
she made some controversial tweets about the whole series, right?
What did she say?
So I was on Reddit and everything, and she would give some weird details about some characters throughout the Harry Potter series. Like she would call some characters gay, or she would just she would spit out these weird I guess facts you can call them, because she's the author, I guess, so she can reveal anything about the characters she wants.
Yeah.
But she was like on Twitter, and the only reason why I know about this because a lot of people made fun of it over the internet. So if we just look up J.K. Rowling tweets, she says all these weird things about revealing facts about Harry Potter. So let's see here. Some of them are kind of weird. Let's see here. And it's weird how she's doing it now, because Harry Potter's been out for like what, 10 plus years?
Yeah, I think she made some sort of sequel series afterwards, and also some side story. So,
is this still going on, Harry Potter, or is it done?
The Harry Potter series itself is done, but the shows and the books and the movies, right? But the sequels and the side stories that she made from, the stories, those are actually being made into movies, and the first 2 released already.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many movies were there? There were 7 movies? 8?
8 movies, but 7 books. The last one was split into 2.
Cool. Jeez, that was a crazy time. Because I was like the only kid who wasn't involved.
Into Harry Potter?
Into Harry Potter, yeah.
Yeah.
I think most of my friends were just like all in.
Yeah.
And I think from my memory, most of the people that I knew that were really into Harry Potter were also into Twilight.
Yeah.
Did you have also that transition?
Yeah.
Did you ever read Twilight?
Oh yeah, I actually read the first 3 books, and the 4th book I couldn't. Yeah. Oh no, there were 4 books actually.
There were 4 books. Oh my god.
Yeah, I read the first 3, and I couldn't finish the 4th one, but I saw all the movies, and I was a fan. And I didn't get why guys were hated on for liking Twilight. I was like, I fucking love Twilight. What are you guys talking about? But I don't know. I guess it's supposed to be more of a girl thing.
I think that was the idea. It was such like an masculine type of series to get into, because it was it was like a romantic. It was like a dark romantic story, wasn't it?
It was a romance story where it's a vampire story where one guy's a vampire. He's mysterious and he has his whole family of vampires, and she has to discover who the family is. I didn't see anything emasculine about it, to be honest, but that was the vibe that everyone was going for, I guess. And then there was another kid who she looked at as a kid and was friend zoned, and then in the second book he becomes he becomes a lot more manly. He grows up, and he's more of like he turns out to be like a wolf, like a werewolf kind of a thing, right? And apparently he's like a very attractive wolf guy, right? But he represents more of the primordial like beast kind of alpha guy, And so all of a sudden we have the pretty boy vampire fighting for this one girl who is also being fought for by this more beastly kind of alpha guy. So it's it's a romantic story essentially, yeah.
Right. There's like a love triangle going on, and there's like a lot of tension. There's a lot of drama.
Yeah, yeah. And people trying to kill her left and right, and there's other stuff going on too.
Wow. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Add on everything you can think of. So I'm pretty sure they went crazy. The writers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my question for that kind of series, because I've never been involved.
Yeah.
What makes it so attractive to a main demographic of females?
I think that's what I just described is what it is. I think it's their fantasy spelled out loud, essentially, which I didn't see at the time. I was like, you know, I was
you
just
liked
like,
it.
this
You're like, this is
yeah,
cool.
it's just it was a story. Yeah, it was like vampires, werewolves, and a girl trying to be killed by other vampires. I'm like, okay, cool, you know. But now that I look back at it, I'm thinking, wow, okay, I really failed in my analysis of this, like deeper analysis, because
so much more.
And funny enough, actually, there was an article on the Rational Mail website titled "Fuck Me Werewolf." What was it? Something vampire. Fuck me werewolf.
Sure.
But basically, the vampire is supposed to be the beta, and so the whole thing is that it's a dichotomy of alpha seed beta need, where the werewolf is supposed to be the alpha male. The vampire is supposed to be the beta male, apparently, who's more of a provider kind of guy, right? And so now, the way I looked at it in the series was the main girl, actually liked the vampire more, but she was slowly starting to get pulled by this werewolf guy, slowly, and so, I mean, a bunch of other crap happens too, but I think that's essentially why. Like, I think it's every girl's dream to have two guys fighting over her. So that's why a lot of times girls will try to make their boyfriends jealous or something like that. You know, it's kind of like a test, but it's her dream, dude. I think it's like their fantasies kind of spelled out, like the mysterious guy, you know, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and you add on a bunch of fantasy like details, I suppose, because there's a lot of what's the word for it? There's a lot of like pseudo magic in the series as well.
Yes.
So it's a lot of like I don't want to say like make believe. It's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? It's like an entertaining type of
way of showing the fantasy.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of fiction, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
They pretty much just add on drama, add on the female fantasy. It pretty much targets a lot of young girls.
Yeah,
I would argue. And I think the same goes for Harry Potter. So
yeah.
I'm not too familiar with Harry Potter, but I think a lot of the customers, a lot of the fan base was young girls because of all the drama that was going on in the books, because there was this like constant tension in a love triangle, right? There was Harry, there was what was the girl's name? Emma Watson. That's the actor.
Hermione,
and then the other guy,
Ron Weasley.
That sounds
that
like
last
a really name.
I know. Weasley. Weasel.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, the same goes for guys. The type of fantasy we like can be in shows like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Star Wars,
right?
Shows like that.
Yeah.
So
like a hero's journey type of thing.
Yeah. Hero's journey type of what's the word I'm looking for? Not materialistic, but it's more of like less drama but more action. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's more of like a manly type of touch to it. It's very masculine. So
yeah, definitely. No, there's like the
hero-based.
whole if you think about it, going back to archetypes, right? Masculine archetypes of king, warrior, magician, lover. There's typically stories like that we find attractive. It's either it's a mix of one of the four, or sometimes even two or three of the four are in it, right? Like think about Star Wars. Let's take for example Luke Skywalker. Magician is part of the part of the equation, and warrior is the other part of the equation. these are archetypes that he has to sort of learn to master to a certain degree, right? He has to become the warrior that is supposed to defeat the dark side or whatever. And, overcoming the obstacles that you're going to inevitably face in becoming a warrior. That's, I think, a key part of storytelling is the hardships that the main character has to go through, because people need to be able to relate to the characters, right? Game of Thrones, I would argue, is completely... Game of Thrones is for sure partially a manly thing, but Game of Thrones throws so many plot twists in there that I would argue that it's much more realistic than like Star Wars would be, Even they're both fantasies.
I agree. I think the reason for that being is because Game of Thrones is such more of a complex human dilemma type story.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is kind of relatable, and a lot of it is what's the word I'm looking for? It's a dark type of drama that is so attractive. It's attractive in the sense where it's a very human type of show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this idea of masculinity and femininity in the show itself, and there's a clear distinction of how that is manifested in each episode. And I think that's what attracts most people, is that type of fantasy where where was I going with this? Type of fantasy, masculines. I think it appeals to all, to be honest. It appeals to both men and women. Because you have strong, independent women like Daenerys.
So
Cersei,
I'll tell you this.
Just other women in general.
Thinking about
Arya.
Game of Thrones, let's say, from the
it's a
perspective
masculine
of
side
Robert
where
Greene's
it's
books.
about war.
Wait, can you hear me?
Um,
Okay, I just want to make sure
all
this
these
thing is
different types of
recording
fantasy,
real quick.
like,
It doesn't
ideas.
show the... It's not showing the lines.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Never mind. It's there. Okay. Anyways, my dad just called me and it messed up my recording a little bit, so I'm gonna have to go back and fix that later. But anyways, besides the point. Relating Game of Thrones to Robert Greene's books, let's take... So he's written The 48 Laws of Power. He's written The Art of Seduction, The 33 Strategies of War, and then a few other books like The 50th Law, Mastery in the Laws of Human Nature. All right. Let's take just the first three books. Each of them, if you think about it, I was thinking about this earlier. So The 48 Laws of Power, it's a book all about power, right? And it was a hit. It was a success. Now, when he was writing the second book, what the publishers were telling him was, okay, the next natural step is the 48 Laws of Power Part 2 or some other Laws of Power, right? Let's go deeper into this. And he said, no, I have to take a different twist on it because I've pretty much given you all the laws of power, like what else is there? I guess there are other ways to go about it, but let's apply power in the realm of seduction, which is more of a feminine thing, not to say that seduction is not for men. There are a lot of seducers that were great seducers in history, like Casanova, and many other seducers that were male, and just charismatic people. But generally speaking, it's more of a feminine trait and more of a feminine form of power. Now, the next book after that, The 33 Strategies of War, it's more of a masculine application of power, where it's all about war and conflict, right? And how to deal with conflict, and whether you should even deal with the conflict or not, right? And so I think those things can be applied, throughout the Game of Thrones. Yeah, Game of Thrones, so well. Because I've seen, think about this, the whole show
Game of Thrones?
Remember we talked about the dark side of human nature and dark potential of mankind, right? The gore, seduction, power, whatever. I mean, gore, seduction, whatever else, violence. Sorry, I keep getting text, so I'm a little bit distracted here. My bad. Anyways, but okay, now let's take from the 48 Laws of Power perspective. I think people have already done an analysis on the 48 Laws of Power applying to Game of Thrones, okay? I've seen the analysis. I've seen blogs written about it. I've seen videos being done on it, but nothing too deep or analytical, okay? There are very few laws that are, sort of intentionally applied. Very few laws that are actually covered fully and thoroughly. Now, I think if you really think about it, everything is there. Seduction is there. Have you reached the character of Marjorie? Tyrell. And yes, go ahead.
Marjorie. Yes. So what I remember is she is the wife. She was going to be the wife of Joffrey, but he ended up dying.
Tommen.
And then she was kind of passed on to Joffrey's brother. What's his name? Tommen?
Yes.
Tommen. Okay.
Right.
And so that's where I'm at right now.
Marjorie Tyrell is a very, very,
but yes,
very good character at seduction. I would argue, besides Melisandre, the best seductress, essentially. The best person at the art of seduction. Okay? And there are so many countless examples, because think about it, like, I don't know if you've read The Art of Seduction or parts of it, or have you picked it up or anything? Okay. So so basically this woman is very good at, and people would think just based on the title of the book that The Art of Seduction is all about sex and yes, but it's actually not. You would be like shocked at it when you actually read it.
Style.
It's probably I would guess even more devious than the 48 Laws of Power. It's even more manipulative because it's so indirect, and sometimes he basically says if you are doing the art of seduction correctly, the person being seduced will have zero idea that they're being seduced. Yes. And you'll see that Marjorie in the show or in the books is especially good at it. She wants power, but you can't, in that time and day, women didn't really have access to direct power like men did. So they had to find a way to get control and power in some very indirect form. So they learned how to become covert communicators. They learned how to get what they wanted through sex or through just seducing a man through emotions, And so she's a perfect example of that. Not only that, but do you remember the character of Melisandre? Stannis Baratheon.
Melisandre. Was she her cousin?
The Red Woman.
No.
Yes, the Red Priest, yeah.
Oh, was she the...
I don't know if they give the name
wife.
in the movie.
Or no,
in the show. Or
the Red Priest.
The books.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's kind of...
Yeah, so... Exactly. So...
she did. They gave her the name.
Melisandre, it's like...
Melisandre.
She's also very good because she's confused Stannis Baratheon into taking all these actions that are not necessarily things that he would have done without her. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Even to the book,
and she's got him under her spell. And so there are countless examples of, and even if you read into the actual art of seduction, right? Like then the book is divided into two parts, right? Like the first part would be the 9 archetypes or the 10 archetypes of seduction. So like the different types of people that are seductive. Like one of them is charmers, another one is charismatic people. Another one is like called the natural, meaning like people who are just naturally that draw other people to them and things like that. And then the devious part of it is the second half where it's the seductive process where you have to, and a lot of this stuff in fact is game, even is applicable to sexual dynamics. Not just like, I guess that's what it is basically, this sexual process, right? So like things like yeah, so things like giving mixed signals, things like making yourself an object of desire,
It plays a big role.
mixing
Yeah.
pain with pleasure, and basically how to take people on an emotional ride.
I th- I think that works very well. That
Yes.
kind of tactic works very well with a lot of very masculine men, because that's pretty much the opposite of what they're like.
Yeah.
So when a very feminine woman
Yes.
comes along and is a master of seduction,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I would agree.
much
It's like the dance of the
control a very
masculine and
masculine
and the
man,
feminine, right?
because that's pretty much his weakness.
and
That's what I would say.
femininity and this whole art of seduction is more, it's indirect, like you were
Right.
saying. It's covert. Men are much more direct. They're much more like, their conflict is much more direct. They're much more likely to, talk shit to each other's face. They're much more likely to stab each other, fight each other, that sort of thing. And that's where war comes in. So now this is the masculine part of it, the 33 strategies of war, right? And you can 100% see the 33 strategies of war, probably even more so than the art of seduction, in Game of Thrones. You'll see all these armies and the different tactics they use, and the different strategies being used in the show. Counselors giving advice to kings and their queens, and you'll see certain wordings, certain phrases that clearly dictate a certain strategy from the book. And I'm like, oh my god, this is so applicable. And I love how it's so sort of historically accurate. And part of the appeal of Game of Thrones, they say, is that the author, George R.R. Martin, actually based a lot of it off of mythology, like paganism mythology, right? Like Thor, Odin, that sort of thing. And so a lot of the characters from pagan mythology are characters that relate in Game of Thrones, and just different types of mythology. Now, those characters you can clearly sort of compartmentalize into different categories of like what their strengths and weaknesses are, and a lot of those strengths and weaknesses can be found in these books, and it's so historically accurate too. So well, I would say the examples that Robert Greene gives in the books, and how they sort of match up to the aristocratic court in the show. But it's just such an interesting thing,
Yeah, it's a lot of the Game of Thrones itself. It's such a complex story. It takes from every domain. It takes from history. It takes from a lot of what you were saying, a lot of theories in respect to masculinity, 48 Laws of Power, all these books. So much application is being applied into this, great story. It mixes it all together in a very well fashion.
Yeah.
And I think that's very attractive. And that's what got you so interested in the show itself, because it's so complex, it's so applicable to a lot of things, and it could be even the works of a genius, to be honest. George R.R. Martin, he pretty much he combined this complex drama-based fantasy story into this huge representation of archetypes throughout history, and how they're so mixed in with a lot of human history, through cultures and everything like that. Because I think each house is supposed to represent like a
Targaryens,
like a piece of human history,
Lannisters,
like
Starks.
The
Dornish.
what are they called? The
Martell.
No, the Dornish people. The Dornish people. What are they called?
Spaniards.
Their house. I forget their house.
Martell. No, you're right. You're right.
Like
probably Egyptian, because they do kind of look Egyptian in the
Egyptian type of
movie.
Is it Spaniards? Yeah. So Egyptians.
Oh, I have no idea.
And
wow, that's interesting. I didn't.
The Lannisters
think
are based off of like the Romans, I think. Is that what?
Yeah.
I forget. Yeah,
Yeah, I
they
can
were making
totally see that.
connections on
100% I
the
can see that.
civilizations. Yeah, and then like the Starks were compared to like the Vikings or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very applicable. It's like wow, he knew where he was going
Mm.
with this. Um, yeah, I mean it's so fascinating. And to be honest, you were telling us before that you were going to do like a full analysis on Game of Thrones itself, right? And compare it to like
Yeah.
the books that you read, 40
100%.
Laws of Power,
Probably
Book
not
of
the Rational
Seduction,
Mail.
32 Strategies of War,
Or at least yet
probably even
not
the Rational
yet.
Mail.
But I will definitely do one on those first three books that you mentioned. That is actually something I've been working on, and I didn't realize the depth to which the books are actually related to the show, or the books are related to each other, and how many connections I could really make. There are. I've been rewatching part of the show, and I have to pause the show once every like 30 to 40 seconds and write down something that some character said that can relate back to the book. And I go back to the beginning chapters of the beginning section, the table of contents of each book, and I'm like, oh shit, that applies right there. Then I go to the chapter and I flip to it, and I'm like, okay, author says right here that this is something that you either want to do or don't want to do. And this is exemplified through the book the show so clearly, and I'm having a hard time thinking. I thought I was gonna find some connections, but not this many. Sometimes some characters represent what Robert Greene talks about so well that I'm thinking, like,
Yeah.
did the two collaborate with each other, or did George R. R. Martin read the 48 Laws of Power before writing the Game of Thrones series, or what? Yeah, seriously, like applying all of this, because I'm like, oh my god.
He's like, oh, I can make a story out of
Not
this.
only
Yeah.
is there like religious stuff, mythological stuff, but there's so much of like human nature and human dynamics that were actually real back in the day, and how ruthless some people were, how power hungry some people were, how manipulative some people were, and how they had to be that way because in a world that's so hard to survive, you almost had to be that way. In today's world, it's not as necessary, because we're living in a society where we're going to be provided for more easily than back in the day, and power is not as I guess direct nowadays as it was back then. But anyways, I'm finding so many connections. Literally, I have to pause. And sometimes the characters, I found certain cases where the characters say the exact same thing that Robert Greene says in the books, literally almost word for word. And they explain it right in the clip. I'm like, oh my god! So I download the clip, and I'm gonna put that in my video analysis. Yeah. Yeah,
It's a lot of work.
I have to
So much
choose which
analysis,
ones to put in.
'cause
I have too many to choose
You're going to
from.
find connections left to right. It's going to be kind of endless. Too many to choose from, yeah. Because it's,
Yeah,
again, such a detailed story, such a deep
yeah.
fantasy drama. It's great. It really is. A lot of
Yes,
people are interested.
yeah.
And this is the final season, right?
Seriously.
Okay. And
they might watch analysis videos. Who knows?
what are people going to do afterwards?
Hopefully, that's where I come
How are
in.
they going to fill their time? Yeah, Game of Thrones was a huge culture shock, to be honest.
11,
for me,
I think. Started at 11.
I never really heard of
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, and it came out like in 2012, 2000 something,
Yeah.
2011. So the first I've heard of it was honestly through the show, and it
Seriously.
became so popular that everyone was talking about it, and everyone had to jump on the bandwagon. So it got a lot of people interested in
Yeah.
that regards, where it was kind of like FOMO.
Oh, there's violence?
In some cases,
Oh,
where it's
gore?
like, oh, why is it so popular? I gotta see it. Oh, there's sex. I'm gonna watch it. There's
Yeah.
violence. There's a hot guy named Khal Drogo. Yeah, a lot of attractions, and HBO really did a good
Yeah.
job on, filming everything and keeping it.
It's so funny because if you think about it, Game
cinematic.
of Thrones is so it's so
regards
the
to,
opposite of
you know,
political
making it
correctness,
popular.
yet it's so popular just as much as political correctness in our society. Think about that. I'm trying to say that I think the connection is that people in reality
so
are actually thirsting for
What are
some
you trying to
sort of
say?
drama that is non-politically correct. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the ultimate fantasy. I think it fills every fantasy, to be honest. Like most of it.
Right.
You've got like power fantasy, you've got seduction
Yeah.
fantasy, you've got drama
Yeah.
fantasy. Uh,
No,
everything goes
definitely. Definitely.
in that kind of show. So there's something for everybody. Do you think that
Yes, I
most
do.
people
You know why?
who are on the
Because
left like the show
I
more than
say
most people
that
on the right?
people on the left, well, first of all, they're
Why do you say
younger,
that?
and more younger people are into Game of Thrones, I think, than the older people. Uh, yeah, younger meaning, yeah, approximately our age, maybe
Oh, really?
between like 20 to 30 years old. I would say
Like our
the
age?
majority of people into Game of Thrones are between those ages. If not, maybe
Sure.
between 18 and 30, let's say. So I think that a huge reason this is because people on the left, I think, are, for the large part, they don't, or they're not quite conscious about their choices. I hate to put it that way, but I feel like they're young at a certain. Yes, exactly. They're into it because everyone else is into it. Just
A lot
like
of it's through influence.
everyone else
I would agree.
seems to be on
Yeah.
the side of the left, at least in the eyes of the public. Therefore, the majority of people on the left are naturally going to lean that way. Just like Game of Thrones became popular, so they're going to naturally go towards Game of Thrones. You see? I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. You think so? I think there's
Yeah,
deep,
possibly.
unfulfilled desire for most people on the left. They just want to like engage in all these
Yeah.
impulses. They want to engage in all of these, taboo type of
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
So anything goes, and anything that can quench their thirst, they're gonna love. So there's shows like Game of Thrones being very popular.
Okay.
There's a lot of weird shows, a lot of progressive. They're not weird, but a lot of progressive shows on Netflix
Okay.
that are getting kind of popular.
Is that a progressive show?
Like Orange is the New Black. That was a popular show.
Okay.
What else?
Oh, I see.
It more or less is. It was more of a feminine type of empowerment
Right.
show, and it gave a voice, and I'm using that term in quotes because most articles have said that
Right.
it gave a voice to the female side of acting, or the female type of story, in respect to women in prison, and how they suffer just as bad as men do.
Right.
Maybe they
But-
do, maybe they don't.
yeah.
I don't know. It's very subjective, and it's very situational.
Right.
But the point is here is that it got a lot of popularity. It got a lot of,
I think also one thing to take into consideration
sound.
is that
A lot of,
90% of the male
attention.
population is in, or sorry, my bad. Let me repeat that. Not in prison. 90% of the prison population is male. You see what I'm saying? Now, I agree that there are women in prison.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting thing that's catching on. I don't know what else I was going to really say about that, but that's just something to take into consideration. I mean, if something is popular and it's targeting a small group, I mean, you have to think about, what about all the guys, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it is kind of one-sided a lot of the time. Like most of the shows are kind of one-sided.
Yeah.
They kind of like cater their own dialogue and their own screenplays to a specific type of person. Like this recent show on Netflix came out. It's called
Yeah.
what is it called? I recently saw it. It's like a gay type of show,
I see.
and it strictly focuses on the struggles of being gay, and it sends a message of oppression, and it sends a message of not enough attention to
Right.
the homophobic community, or not the homophobic, the homosexual community. So there's that regard. But a lot of the media nowadays, I think they,
I would say,
in a sense, are trying to cater
yeah,
to a lot of the leftist demographic, because it's easy money. You know what I mean? So profit is pretty much guaranteed in that regards. But it's evident to see this in a lot of films nowadays. So Captain Marvel, there was that whole fiasco going on about like power dynamics. And,
I wouldn't even
femininity,
say that that's a bad
masculinity,
thing unless it's
feminist type
overdone,
movie,
which I
that
think
kind of stuff.
slowly it's starting to become overdone. Would you agree or would you disagree?
It definitely is being overdone because
Right.
the movement itself in respect to like feminists or femininity,
Right.
and all these other movements,
Yeah.
like the trans movement, the homosexual movement, LGBTQ, that whole movement, it's becoming so one-sided in a sense where it's almost like a hate movement. It's as if, I've said this before, they have a dogma type of mentality. So if you're not with them, you're against them, kind of thing. And a lot of that is being portrayed in media.
I'm glad that George R.R. Martin in his
it's kind of
books
concerning
didn't write
here and there.
has like a balance of all this kind of stuff, especially because when he's writing fantasy that comes from the late medieval times, right? You gotta don't tell me that there's female empowerment during that time, okay? Like you cannot put that shit in there without like at least put a little bit, but come on.
Oh, he definitely makes it clear. I don't know how much it shows in the book. I mean, in the show, but in the book, every now and then, it's kind of common. He constantly reminds the reader how much a female doesn't have power. In that that story, in that time, in that timeline. Like he'll constantly talk about. He'll give the message that women are abused and women have no power and they're just objects and they're just treated as tokens, and it's really a man's world. But then he goes on to other chapters where he talks about Arya and Cersei and other strong, powerful women who use their own means to survive in this world. So it's a type of struggle that gets a lot of people interested in the story. And I think a lot of women are attracted to that kind of dynamic as well, where it's they see a woman on screen that's has the potential to be powerful, has the potential to be very great, and they go through the struggle, and they see this manifestation of the character representing something they want to achieve, right? So to go through the struggle, to be powerful, to have that sense of value in the world, where your sense of value is not even considered.
I
possible.
100% agree. It's so crazy. This is where the art of seduction actually even comes in, because at the very intro, the preface to the book, he talks about how women were the ones to invent seduction, and the reason is because they had no power. And this is what the argument goes like in history. You'll see it. You'll see it is basically male dominated, and now they had to become much more Machiavellian. They had to become much more manipulative to get what they wanted, and indirect. This is how they naturally evolved to be more covert communicators. And so he talks about this in the preface of the book, and he goes on and he says later on, eventually, even men started using seduction, eventually. But for the most part, some of the greatest seducers, first of all, were women, actually. And I love the fact that Martin in his book sticks true to that. That's a very sort of accurate description of history in a sense, right? Because I like the fact that it shows in medieval times that women didn't have power and they had to achieve power in other ways, indirectly, covertly. And it shows very clearly in examples in his book, which I'm thank God. Thank God this is not one of those books that's like, the female then became the ruler and she dominated all over all men or something like that, because that would not be as accurate, back in those days at least. Yeah.
Right. It's not a very one-dimensional story. It has multiple dimensions. There's so much going on in Game of Thrones. It's attractive and it's so complex because you got all these characters with their own backstory and their own struggles and it's so attractive in the sense where each character is so not relatable but so interesting.
Yeah,
and it's amazing
seriously.
how much character development George R. Martin does. It's crazy, how they interact with each other, how they interact with the world, how they think, what was their past like, how they're growing.
Like you, based on your personality, which one do you think you would fall into?
That I'm a part of?
Really? You think so?
Based on my personality.
So,
I know yours would be Lannister.
About it in a second.
I honestly think so, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
but,
interesting.
I don't know,
Why is that?
Because I initially would go with the Night's Watch, to be honest. I don't know, a sense of duty, a sense of not being involved in politics and drama. It's to say you have just this one purpose, and
interesting.
You're
I
meant
can
to
see that
protect the
actually. I
realm.
can see that.
It's a very simple, cut dry type of life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I would have thought I was 50-50
but more
Starks
on
and
you.
Lannisters.
What would you
Certain
consider
parts of the
yourself to
Lannisters I completely relate to, and other parts I would relate to the Starks. At least that's what I initially thought. Then I started watching these videos online about the descriptions of the different houses, and then I watched Starks, I watched Lannisters, and I saw Targaryens. Those are the three videos I saw about how the personalities, the symbolism of the different colors of the flag and how they represent certain characteristics of people in the house. And so what I found was I'm actually, at least from my own personal analysis, and who I truly am deep down, the person that I don't show to the public too often, the person who, if I was completely vulnerable and honest about who I was, I would align 25% with Lannister and 75% with Targaryen, and 0% Stark. So there's multiple reasons, right? But the 25% Lannister is for sure the whole image thing, the whole yes, deception, politics,
type of deceptive,
not to say that I'm like this super
figure.
manipulative person or anything, but the whole image, how Tywin Lannister emphasizes self-image of the house, right? You have to hold yourself in a high regard. You have to play the game and play it really damn well. That's the part where I can clearly relate to the Lannisters. But then there's a certain point at which it becomes, I don't know, I have to watch the video again, but I started realizing I'm not like that exactly. There's certain parts I can take from this, and there's other parts that I'm definitely not like that. Okay, moving on to the Targaryens. Now, in this video, I was shocked actually to see that I was so much more like this mentality, than whatever else, the Lannisters or whatever. So, Targaryens, they said the colors are red and black. Okay, first of all, since I was a boy, my favorite colors, number one was red, and the second color was black. Not to say that, yeah, dude. And do you know the reason why is because I always felt like red was such a strong color, and black was so much of this like I don't know. It felt almost like a aggressive type of thing, and I don't know why. I just fucking loved it. That's just me, Now they say, in the video they were saying, okay, well the banner represents, the red and black, it represents, this aggressive type of mentality that the Targaryens have in terms of ambition and leadership, which I absolutely love, and I absolutely consider myself within that realm. Then they talk about inner vitality and, ruthlessness at certain times, right? Not, looking at things the way they are and being completely ruthless about it. And you can see how Daenerys is sort of transforming into this type of character, but at the same time, they're not so, they're not like, they're different from the Lannisters in the regards of super, super, super deception and manipulation. Although I love, things like the 48 Laws of Power, the Art of Seduction, and things like that. I think those are necessary things to learn about, because if you're going to try to do anything ambitious or anything big, you're going to run into people that are going to be like that. And you need to know their game, So anyways, the Targaryens, he was talking about inner vitality. That was the main thing. Ruthlessness, ambition, and leadership. Those are the things. And I was like, wow. And there's more detailed analysis in the video where I was like, oh my God, a sense of destiny and greatness. That's a huge one right there. I'm sounding super fucking narcissistic here, but but I'm just being, if I'm being honest, a lot of those values I align myself with, and I found that I do. They always think of themselves as like destined for something, bigger, like to conquer dragons and, this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, I feel that, man. I feel that. So, no, I don't know. It's just, I just thought that was interesting because, like, I feel like people can be placed into certain aspects of Game of Thrones. Yeah. Yeah. If I was honest about the person I am,
you're like, I would be that.
I don't always,
right there.
talk about like the ambitions that I have or whatever. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me digress just a little, and then we'll get back on Game of Thrones.
Oh man, Goku.
Dragon Ball Z,
to be honest,
you're watching, right?
Goku. I mean,
who's your favorite character?
I like. No, I to be honest, I did at a certain point I like Vegeta more, to be honest, because
how basic
the whole like Saiyan pride, the whole like he sees himself as like the greatest, and he just has to be, and that drives him. Oh my God, dude, like trust me, part of it, I loved it. I loved that. Like I love that character aspect of him. But what I found was that the reason I like Goku a lot more is because he competes with his own potential, and he doesn't always compare himself with other people. He starts off at a position where it's like he just has fun doing it. He's actually interested in fighting. If he sees an opponent that's better than him, it's not like his pride comes in and he's like, no, dude, I'm the best, even though clearly you're not, and I'm going to prove it to you. It's more of like an excitement. He's like, oh shit, dude, like that guy's better than me. What can I learn from him? And that I find is such a good quality to have. There's no jealousy there. There's no ego and pride that comes in. It's more of like, I want to be the best, but I'm going to learn from this other person versus I'm going to have this pride and narcissism to the point of like demonization, like it's so out of touch with reality, and it hurts you. I think narcissism can help you in a certain aspect. It can serve you functionally, but there's also a dysfunctional narcissism, because it can, if you become so narcissistic that you're out of touch with reality, you suffer for that. And that's what I feel Vegeta goes through, because he just has to be the best like all the fucking time, and go on, you were saying.
Yeah, and just to be being the best all the time without being narcissistic. A character in that same universe would be Frieza. So always narcissistic and always wanting to be the best, and they can never accept that someone is better than them. So they'll be deceptive and they'll be dysfunctional, and they'll do anything it takes to prove themselves that they're the best. So that's an extreme way of looking at it. But going back to Game of Thrones, it's such a fantasy world that most people can actually imagine themselves being in, right? Because I feel like a lot of people who watch
Yeah.
the show, they'd be like, "Oh, I'd be this kind of person," or I'd be doing this," or I would be serving this
Yeah.
kind of person. That's really cool because everyone's like on board in the whole fantasy thing. What
Yeah.
else? So you're doing an analysis.
I've
that's
been.
coming
I've
out
been.
soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really want to talk about Game of Thrones? I've been doing that. I really got to catch up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wish we could talk more about it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of
No, that's fine. That's
limited
fine.
on my
That's fine.
knowledge here because I'm
We can
only
talk
so
about
far
it
into the
soon
books.
when you're caught up. Have you thought about
But yeah,
watching like the first couple seasons because you already kind of know what happens? I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you. I mean, I don't want to like tell you what to do or anything, but
Oh yeah, sure. I should probably do that.
Yeah.
Right, watch it now. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of investment, and sounds like a good idea though.
Okay.
But I
No,
really
for
want to
sure,
finish
for
the
sure.
books.
So,
really
I mean,
on
whenever you do
that
finish the
route
books,
first.
let me know and we can talk about it more
So
because this is it's such a oh man, there's so much to dissect. Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, and you're going to be doing that pretty soon, to be honest, on your own channel.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
What
first of
made
all,
you
it's
wanna do
something that I
this
love. Two
whole
things that I
analysis?
like.
'Cause it's
I
it's
was
a lot of
always
work.
interested in Robert Greene's works because it's just so different from the rest of the self-help advice that you get out there. It's so much more raw and so much more dark. And I find that this is part of the reason why Game of Thrones also appeals to people, and even me. I'm like, oh my god, the depths that people are willing to go to, it's insane. But I think okay, so number one, I knew Game of Thrones was coming out. The newest season was gonna come out. I knew people are gonna be talking about it, and I know that could help boost my channel views, especially if I'm doing it around this time. Second of all, it's just I love just I've seen the correlations between the books and the show before. But I've never really, and I've actually looked up the videos before because I was like, oh, dude, like it's so crazy how, this book relates to Game of Thrones and whatever. So I looked it up and I saw videos. I saw a couple of videos doing an analysis, and I loved it. I saw those videos and I was like, okay, this is great. At the time, I thought it was great. Now, as my video production quality goes up and my editing skills get better and I'm getting better at video myself, I'm starting to think like, I could do this way better than what those videos were, looking back at it. And I can really give the public something that would be very interesting and entertaining to watch, especially because the 48 Laws of Power was a bestseller. It was a bestseller. It was a book that was sold like, I think, if I remember correctly, 1.2 million copies up to date worldwide. And so it sold a good number of copies. So the book itself is great. Not a lot of people have read The Art of Seduction or The 33 Strategies of War. The 48 Laws of Power was really like the main book that he wrote. But I think if people can get interested in the 48 Laws, they can also be interested in The Art of Seduction and the other one if it's applied properly to Game of Thrones. Because anything Game of Thrones is going to be addicting for people to watch. Like people love it. So, and I thought, why not just, I don't know. I was like, why not? Like nobody's done. I feel like I can envision doing an analysis that's even more in depth. I can, with the editing skills that I have right now, where I can like pull up sources on the screen, I can highlight certain facts, I can, play certain clips, I can easily find correlations here. So I don't know. I started watching it and I'm like, the idea is it's not been done yet. And it's, the rest of my videos so far have been already kind of done in one way, shape or form by another person. But this one it's sort of untapped potential so far. So I wanted to try it out and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you'll get a lot of traffic because of the new season that's coming out. But yeah, hopefully that goes well.
Yeah.
Um,
Anything else you wanted to talk
I mean,
about?
yeah, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a
I
while.
mean, we can call it a shorter episode if you want.
Getting tired? No, nothing really.
Hour and 20.
But we could. How much? How much are we at right now? We're at
Yeah, sure.
an hour and 20. I mean, we could fill the time to talk about whatever.
No.
I mean, you were pretty much done for today.
I'm at home.
Unless you're doing something that I don't know about.
Thank
Yep.
you.
He has a nice home, by the way.
Yes, on
What was I gonna
perfection.
say? Candid Chit Chats.
perfectionism.
You recently
Yeah.
recorded an episode, right?
So it was
Perfection.
about.
Oh.
So
What
one
was
of
that
our one of the members of Candid Chit Chats, Nick, he actually sent us in our group chat. He sent us a picture talking about perfectionism and how people should not strive for perfectionism. They should just go and take action, and get better and better along the way. Sort of, that was the idea. I sort of agreed with it, but I also somewhat disagreed with it because I think that you should also strive for high quality work, not just like throw out content, right? I think you should not let perfectionism and you seeking perfectionism or a perfect sort of product stop you from ever releasing content. But I also think that you should release high quality content. Now we just ended up talking about the balance between seeking perfectionism versus just doing it. Is there a balance? Is there not a balance? That sort of thing. And I forgot exactly what we ended up talking about, but one of the interesting questions that Nick asked us on the podcast was, imagine a painting that you really like, just in your head. Do you have it? Okay. Now imagine a completely blank white wall.
Yeah.
A perfectly painted white wall. Which one would be more perfect to you? The painting or the wall? Me too. That's what I said. But Nick argued, well, it's actually supposed to be the wall because by definition, if the wall is supposed to be perfectly white, then it's supposed to be by definition perfect. It's perfect, right? There's no scratch on it. There's no like anything on it. But how do you know the painting is perfect? Because painting itself is more of a subjective thing. You see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense. It's kind of like it's
yes.
it's not
and
ruined,
it's perfect
it's
in the
like
eyes of the
marked up,
beholder.
therefore
It's like
it's like
beauty
not
lies in the
symmetric,
eyes
it's
of
not
the
perfect.
beholder, not necessarily in the eyes of whoever, of everyone actually. Yeah. It was a
that's kind of
very
a weird question.
interesting
Never heard of
thing,
that
but I
before.
think it was more about semantics, to be honest,
What'd you think of it,
than actual like thinking deep. That's just me, because I was like, okay, well, by definition, yes, the wall is perfect.
Okay,
to be honest,
yeah,
and that is, I guess, an outlook on life. But I don't necessarily see. I still chose the painting. In fact, right now I'm in my room looking around. I see a painting on the wall. It's Vincent Van Gogh's Starry Night. That's my favorite painting. I know it's so basic because everyone fucking loves Vincent Van Gogh's A Starry Night, right? But Starry Night. You've probably seen it around somewhere.
What's it called? Van Gogh's.
It's in my room. It's a 3-piece portrait painting. I'll send you a picture later.
Starry Night. Is it in your room?
Yes.
Oh, is it? I think I have it right here. It has like a bunch of it's a blue sky. It's kind of like a wave. Okay. I can show you my favorite painting. I think it's uploading in the chat right now. I have it right here on my desk.
1 second. Open it up. Oh, I see.
It's a World War II painting.
Nice.
And
okay.
Yeah, it's
it's
called the Hell That Was Bastogne, and it's kind of like a really masculine painting. but bear with me. It's just a picture of
Right.
a couple of soldiers in the snow, and
Hmm.
they're kind of like in a ditch, and they're just hanging out, and they're just chilling, literally. And there's imprint on the back here, and it says here that the hell that was Bastogne by Simon Smith. Exhausted, hungry, and numbed by cold, the men of Easy Company, 506th, 101st Airborne Division, hold their hastily constructed positions against the overwhelming German forces encircling the strategic town
Oh
of
wow.
Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge, Christmas of 1944. So this is during Christmas time. So it says here, despite the overwhelming odds, lightly armed with little ammunition, scant supplies, and inadequate winter clothing, they held their position for over a week until they were pretty much saved. But the reason why I have this painting is because it really teaches, or it really shows me how much, just the definition of pain. Like whenever I'm like,
Yeah.
struggling through studying,
Yeah.
or I'm like, stressing out, I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
what pain is. Those guys knew what pain was.
That's a
So
good
it's just a
question,
reminder
and
for me.
this is exactly what I told Nick
But why
and
was that your
Julio. It
favorite
has,
painting?
to be
The,
honest, nothing to do with the
starry
actual painting itself. It has more to do. It has more to do with the fact that it resembles my childhood, because I remember in the 4th grade I was introduced to the painting, and in fact I had to reproduce it on my own paper with painting tools that the elementary school gave. It was not, believe me, dude. But I remember clearly thinking about it so
Oh, really?
deeply for some
Was it
reason.
perfect?
And I don't know why, but every time I look at it, it calms me down so much. It's such an appealing, like, color pattern, the waviness. But more so, the leaf to the left, the tall leaves in the grass, I for some reason always thought that was a castle. I don't know why. Like some wavy castle. And it just, I don't know, dude. It was so weird. And
Oh yeah.
I can't say it has anything to do with the painting. The actual fact to me, yeah. To me, it was more of a
Just like an emotion type of response.
childhood memory. It has nothing to do with the actual painting. If I had to choose an actual painting for myself where the painting
Okay.
itself actually resembles something that is important to me, it would be Washington crossing the Delaware with his men. It's, again, very common. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere. And so the reason that is because, again, kind of like you,
Yeah.
where the odds in the Revolutionary War for winning for Americans was so small, yet they pulled out every thing in the book to win. Even, and again, that kind of almost has to do with Christmas morning also, right? Because they crossed the Delaware, I think, into is Trenton, New Jersey, and they fired at the British soldiers on Christmas morning, and surprised them, because normally that goes against the tradition, but they went against the tradition. Why? Because they had to win, But again, kind of like going against the whole odds thing, and that if I had to choose one, that would be that for the actual painting, that one. But for actual emotional memories and that sort of thing, that would go to Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night.
Yeah. Paintings in general, they are very unique. So I'm a big advocate
Right.
for art in general, where museums should exist and they should be all around. And there's always that argument where like, oh, the art that's worth like $1 billion is ridiculous. Like there's a black dot on a whiteboard,
Yeah.
and it's worth like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell?
It's like, come on, man.
That kind of art is a little questionable, but I think the idea behind
Right.
yeah, I think the idea behind that is like, we don't know how
Right.
much this is worth, right? So we're just going to put some sort of random price on it.
Yeah.
But we know it's of high value because it's so unique.
Seriously,
Maybe. I'm
no,
not
they
sure.
have a
I'm not sure how artists
strong
think.
emotions.
They're
I think
so
they're strongly connected to their emotions.
unlinear. They're like all over the place. Yeah. Yeah, they're very chaotic in the
Yeah.
sense of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a mindset mentality.
Yeah.
So their work is very chaotic. Like they just go at it and they're very emotional about it. Um, but yeah, I mean, paintings and art, it's really it's a type of developed taste. It's not for everybody. Um, I know most young people nowadays they don't really uh, invest that much time into art. But as
Yeah.
you get older, um,
My
it
friends and
becomes
I
more
actually we
attractive
went down
in
to
a way.
San Diego one time, and
Don't know why that
we
is, to be honest.
went to a museum, and we started to analyze the paintings on the wall. We were like, what do you think the deeper meaning of this painting is? What do you think the deeper meaning of that one is? And so we just made a whole like game out of it at a certain point. And we actually started to analyze it, and it was actually a lot of fun. Sometimes we cracked jokes, other times we were serious about it, but overall, it was an exercise in interpretation or analysis of something, right? Which you don't understand. It's like the solving of a puzzle, which I think becomes a lot more intriguing as you age because, let's say, I think the brain matures a little bit more. You have more life experience. You can connect more to an older generation because things you like as a kid don't necessarily match up to the things that you like as an adult all the time. You know, certain things you might, but you have such a different perspective on the world. As you age, you start to
Yeah,
mature, and that maturity leads to you seeing. Again, it comes down to perspective. I think where you look at a painting and you see something in that painting, right? Like let's take your painting for example. The what kind of meaning did you take from it? Right.
initially I thought it was a meaning of like
Yeah.
struggle, hardship.
And if
Uh,
you showed that to
just a
let's say
lot
like a
of that
12-year-old
feeling
kid, that first of
initially.
all, the 12-year-old kid probably has not gone through major hardship the way that an adult has. Just based on life experience and the time spent on Earth. Um, most likely, the odds, the odds are right now. Um, as
On Earth.
you
Yeah.
age, your
Yeah.
brain also sort of changes, and your brain is not even fully developed until age 25. As you grow, again, that hardship starts to mean something else. It resembles something else. It's more of like a symbol to you because if you look at that painting and it sort of almost reminds you to humble yourself because it's like, look at these guys had to go through something way worse than what I'm going through. If they can put up with that, I should be able to put up with this. That sort of thing. You see what I'm saying? I think that's what you feel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most people they don't make that connection.
Yeah.
Or most young people, I would argue. And that's exactly the connection I have, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest. Um, it's kind of a mental reminder. So it's good to have that reminder every now and then, because
Right.
you need to have some sort of motivation every now
Yeah.
and then, and it needs to be fueled
100%.
often.
100%. Um, for
So that's
me,
very
and I think there's
important.
various forms of art
And art can
that
do
can
that.
propel that type of emotion from you and that reminder. One is just, like a painting, right? Other forms of art could be music. Certain types of music will elicit certain emotional responses from you and will send you reminders. This is why I've created a playlist where that playlist is dedicated to happy and upbeat music. And so whenever I'm feeling in a weirdly like a odd mood or I'm just kind of tired, I play the music in that playlist and it automatically triggers a sort of an energetic emotional response from me. I start to sing, dance, and all of a sudden I start to feel better, Um, yeah.
Yeah, music's very
Funny
powerful in
enough,
that
I was
sense. Like
actually
there's
going to
some
do
songs that just like
video on my
instantly
private
give you that
channel
emotion.
before I decided on the whole Game of Thrones thing, um, on how music affects your emotional thought process and your brain waves and that sort of thing. And I know there's research that's been done on that, and people haven't really seen the research. So I thought I'd give them a little bit of research, a little bit of this, and the advice I would give is to consciously choose the music that you listen to. Don't only listen to music because it's popular, or anything like that, but choose the songs based on the beat, the lyrics, the style, and when you can truly use the music to your advantage, whether it's to relax yourself or to get yourself into an upbeat mood, or to get yourself even in like an aggressive mood when you're about to work out. Like I have music that I listen to that's like very heavy. It's very it has a very aggressive vibe to it when I'm working out. And that's because it elicits an energy from me. It sort of brings out a different side of me that can, I guess, I don't want to say lift heavier or anything like that, but that can just, enjoy working out. But yeah, the advice I would have given was choose music consciously, and based on the mood that you want to create for yourself, or based on the mood that you think you need, choose that music, or that choose a song,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, working out, everyone has their own special type of workout music. Gets some pump, gets the adrenaline going.
Yeah.
And it really helps. It really does. I know I have my own during the morning. when I
Yeah,
work
seriously.
out.
I will,
Music's
but I'm going to
powerful.
save that one for the future.
But you're not gonna continue with
when
that
I'm done with the Game of
analysis
Thrones
video
one,
that you were talking
because
about?
that was going to be a part of a series of videos that I'm doing on actual. I've started a series of videos on happiness, and there's just so obviously that's not an easy subject. That's like a huge subject, right? And I wrote out like 16 different video ideas. One being on like philosophy, another one being on hormonal like profiles, another one being on music that you're listening to, and different ideas, but music was one of the ideas there. So I'm going to save that for the future when I'm done with Game of Thrones. Yeah. That's a good question. I've been
Sounds
taking
good.
a while on that
And
one.
when is your first
Mainly
video to come
because
out on
there's a
Game
lot of
Thrones?
analysis to do. A second thing is that I'm waiting for my new computer because I'm trying to make this one a lot more cinematic, a lot heavier edited, better edited at least. And so if in order to do this, I have to have a computer that can handle it, and my computer is already like slowing down right now. So you can probably expect it within a week. Yeah. And that particular video is going to be a long one, so
Sounds good.
somewhat of a long one at least.
Look forward to it.
No, not that long. Maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah.
Like an hour long. Oh, okay. Isn't there like a 10-minute mark
Is
on YouTube?
there?
Where it's
I've-
like, if you want to get monetized, you have to be
That's
at least
very
10 minutes.
possible, actually. I have no idea.
That's what I hear nowadays.
Okay. I definitely should take that into consideration.
Okay. Just a heads up. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double check me on that.
Yeah.
If you're still listening, double check me on that.
Yeah,
folks.
yeah, let's do it.
But I think we can call it an episode now. If you wanted to.
Yeah.
Kind of a free-flowing episode, not really an agenda to follow here. It was supposed to be a report, but
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
exactly the most political nerds
Yeah.
you'll find in terms of podcasts.
Cool. We'll call it an episode. Thanks.
But yeah, we like to talk a lot.